For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's 13th practice of fall camp. And it was a very light practice, no pads, no helmets. It's a very light walkthrough. Helton said they're simulating a normal regular season game week. So, of course, Friday before a game would be pretty light. It was pretty much led by Clay and John Baxter, special teams. What do you call it? Mastery? Special teams mastery? Situational mastery. Yeah. That's what it was. But a very light day for Friday.
Yeah, you all, I was kidding. I wondered if on a day like this, how much trouble does John Baxter have, getting to sleep like last night, knowing that basically it's going to be his practice, for an hour and 10 minutes or whatever. I mean, Clay was out there involved with, they basically substituted every team for every situation that you could do.
Yeah.
And then they got into, end of game situations, the Hail Marys and, onside kicks and all that kind of thing. But basically nobody's running. Nobody, there were a couple of Hail Marys sort of half-hearted. A couple of easy punts and that, but basically it's, save yourself for tomorrow. It's obvious Clay really does consider this a game. He calls it a game. He's thinking about it as a game. I didn't think originally that week 2 would be as much of a game week as it's become. I think they were a little farther along in week 1. So this is closer to being a game type week than maybe a preseason camp. And a preseason camp ends after tomorrow. But they're close to being a mock game, whatever, mock game 2 week.
A mock of the mock game week.
Yeah, they mocked it up, and this is what they're doing. But because we don't get to see that. That's the Friday closed practice. So it is a little different when, for example, a couple of TV stations are here, and they're going for video, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, maybe another day would have been better because, nobody's in pads, no helmets, and nobody's running, nobody's throwing, nobody's catching. They're standing around making sure they're all lined up, that they've got all the right people in the right places, but and they're always, of course, at the other end of the field. So, but at least, we're not one of the TV guys, so we're not going to worry about that.
Yeah, it's also salute to Troy tonight. So if some of the fans came and watched practice, it was an interesting practice for them to come and watch. So if you watched it today, that's not how it normally is. But all eyes are on tomorrow's preseason game, as Helton likes to call it. He did talk extensively about the quarterbacks today because all reporters wanted to not really talk about today, but talk about the quarterbacks. And Helton made sure to say it's still a 3-man race. All 3 quarterbacks are still in it together. No one has separated himself. And specifically, he highlighted Matt Fink in his play today. He said, or this week, he said week 2 was especially good for Matt Fink.
Yeah, it's interesting because unfortunately, if you really wanted to stay as a 3-person race and you really wanted to, be focused on all 3, every question is, well, what about JT this? Yeah. And what about JT that? And finally, Clay got to say, well, I'm going to answer about all 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But how has JT separated himself? Oh, he hasn't.
Yeah.
And they've only had the one game scrimmage, and it'll be interesting because how much of a sample is that? They're each going to get 2 series, like they did 8 or 9 play series, and a 2-minute drill. So again, they're going to do it exactly the same as they did last Saturday. So if you hit 10 of 12 like JT did, and you throw over 4 touchdowns, you might say, well, that's enough. Although again, if you how many players do you get to throw the ball to? Do you get to throw it to all the tight ends, for example, and all that? So Clay said he thought the decision would not happen after tomorrow and would go into through week 3. He said that's what he's looking for, but I don't think we know for absolutely certain when it's going to happen.
Yeah, and Helton said that he doesn't either. He said he doesn't have a crystal ball as far as when the decision will come. It might go into further into mock game week than we expect. But then it forced the question, well, if you're going to still have 3 guys, is there any concern that whoever will be the starter doesn't have enough chemistry with the first team? And I asked Helton that, and he didn't really want to bite on that question.
No, but it gave him a chance to say, oh, we got some short arms out there, or yes, we're going to have to do that by game week. You're going to have to turn the team over to somebody. He doesn't really certainly didn't want to turn it over to anybody today. May not want to turn it over to anybody tomorrow. Next week will be interesting. How, if you don't have a quarterback, designated, but you're going to do mock game week, how exactly, you can split them up. I don't think you can split it up 3 ways in mock game week.
No.
I think somebody has to be eliminated, and this will be interesting as it plays out. And is there a little pressure? Yeah, because of the Max Brown, Sam Darnold. First year that Clay was the coach, and so it'd be interesting to see how and when he resolves the quarterback situation.
Yeah, indeed. Tomorrow's scrimmage, like I said, all eyes will be on that scrimmage. What are you specifically looking for?
I would think I'm looking for the offensive line to play as one, to really feel like you can do both things. You can run the ball with them, and you can pass protect. And they're not going to stop themselves with penalties. And even though there are going to be a couple of guys who weren't penciled in there necessarily, that you want them to just function, very smoothly. You don't want to see any coverage bust in the secondary. Clay was talking about that. That was one of the things that, got USC in a terrible situation, where they're, 98th to 122nd in giving up long pass plays in the country last year. And there was no excuse for that. And that hasn't been happening. We haven't been seeing those busts. If you get a long pass play against these guys, you really earned it. Usually you've caught the ball in a crowd or whatever. But then you just want to see the mastery of the quarterbacks. You don't want to see anybody just throwing the ball to a defender where there is no offensive player, or for the potential pick six and all that. We've probably seen more of that than we really need to see. You don't want to see that anymore. And you want to see them to be able to run the ball. Just whenever they feel like they need to run the ball, you want them to be able to run the ball. That's where are the 8-play drives enough where you'd maybe, there's some drives you'd probably like to run the ball 8 plays.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works. I think they have been running the ball in practice pretty well and pretty committed to the run. So maybe they don't have to do it, as much in the scrimmage, since you really need to look at the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I'd like to see them throw to the tight ends more. I'd like to see them use some kind of misdirection a little bit, some screen passes, some things that to relieve the pressure. If they're going to get all that pressure from the defense, you got to be able to go to some things that will bite the defense if they keep coming, which would be we haven't seen, we've seen them work on screens more, and USC has not been a team that has liked to do much in the way of screens and has mastered the screens, but I'd like to see some of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned throwing to tight ends, plural, but as far as injuries go, I think there's only one healthy tight end in Josh Follow right now, so that might be a little difficult. But as far as other injuries, Helton said that Porter Gustin is progressing along well. He ran at 13 miles an hour on the 0G machine, 90%, so he's getting there. He's doing some anti-gravity running there, so good progress for Porter.
Yeah, I guess you do take for granted. Tyler Petit was one of the guys on the sideline today. Although when you talk to the tight ends, they always count Austin Appleby. So we'll give him.
He's been out there for a while.
And then Eric Kromenhoek is back. So that's a changing cast of characters, and we really don't know where Daniel Amato-Baby is. We see him running by, we see him running free, but we don't see him in 11 on 11 yet. So it would be great if you could see him in there, because he can do some things that none of the others can.
Yeah.
Multiple tight ends would be a good thing.
Yeah, they're a banged up group. But going forward, we'll have tomorrow's Saturday scrimmage, and then we'll be off Sunday and Monday. We'll be back Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we're going into normal regular season practice schedule. So Thursdays will be closed, Saturday will be a closed scrimmage. So we really will only get to evaluate Tuesday and Wednesday. Do you think we'll be able to gather anything as far as the quarterback situation goes?
Yes, I think so.
Yep.
I think we'll get a sense of it. We're not even sure how much they're going to. That Saturday last year when they did that, when they went off campus, they basically used it for doing all the phones and all the substitutions and what have you, and went to one of the junior colleges where we're not allowed to go cover, and they're not allowed to publicize an off campus practice, but. it'll be interesting to see how they go. Because Clay mentioned the possibility that 2 scrimmages might be enough for the quarterbacks. Might be. It's not real clear. I mean, and there would be people like, me, I would say probably I would know if I had to make a call, I would make a call. But I don't have to be completely dealing with all 3 of those guys. I mean, we can do it from the outside, and we're not sitting down with those kids. We're not in the meetings with them, and we don't, and maybe, and we know how much they've gotten better. But Clay, I think, really feels how far they've come since the spring, how hard they've competed, how hard they've worked. And so I think, without a doubt, he does not just want to sort of dismiss that and say, hey, this is, and there are other coaches who probably would say, who cares? I need to get with my number 1 guy. I don't think that's not what Clay's going to do.
No. I mean, do you think that there could be a decision made, but there's a delay in when we actually know, when we're officially informed?
Well, I think there could be a decision in the coaches. For example, T and Clay and Brian Ellis, could all maybe agree, but it might be one of those things where, hey, let them compete. Let them keep competing, and it can't hurt the guy that's going to win, and it's being respectful to whoever doesn't win. So yeah, I think that's a real possibility. I think I don't think they're seeing anything differently from what we're seing.
Yeah.
I mean,
they see it more.
We don't see the film. I mean, we always knew the year that Matt Leinart got selected, there were 4 quarterbacks in the running, and we were like flipping coins. But they were so clear from the meetings and from the sense of mastery that he had, and all the things that we didn't see. And so they go ahead and name him, and all of a sudden he's like a different quarterback. I mean, he's throwing the ball differently. He's accurate. He's on his toes, and all the things that maybe you were like, well, I don't know about, all of a sudden it was like, boy, everything just clicked into place. So you kind of have to, be a little, because when they selected Matt Leinart, I'm not sure anybody said, wow, that's really the right call. We didn't know. So it's hard to, to substitute your judgment for their judgment, I think, at times. Mm-hmm. That doesn't stop us from doing that.
No.
But you have to kind of give them, and then there comes a point where you say, oh, you're seeing something different from what I'm seeing. But at this point, you don't want to do that.
Yeah. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for a light Friday practice. We'll see you guys tomorrow for an early Saturday morning scrimmage. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.